Welcome to the Workbench. I'm Doug. And today we're going to talk about our Sashiko machine. The Baby Lock Sashiko performs a very unique stitch that really brings out creativity into your quilts and into your different fabrics. But it's very unique, and this machine is only available through Baby Lock. If you ever experienced any kind of problem with your stitching on the machine, it could be related to your needle or maybe the latch wire. So I'll show you how that works in just a minute. But before we begin, we're going to retrieve a couple things from my accessory tray, which is off to the side, hidden very well, huh? Pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and remove the screwdriver. I'm going to use the tweezers because these have a very nice precision tip. Included with your machine, Baby Lock provides 3 replacement latch wires along with 1 replacement needle. And we'll show you how all that works in a minute. So I want to put this back in place, and then we'll demonstrate how that stitch is formed and show you how to replace the needle as well as the latch wire. Before we begin, I just want to take the foot and get it out of our way here. Okay, we've got a nice thumb screw here to make it easy for us, and when the presser foot's up at its highest position, we can detach it. Okay, now on this machine, whenever you would replace a needle, latch wire, or bobbin case, it's very important that you position the machine perfectly for that. So to do so, you push and hold this button until it stops. Once it's stopped, you're going to see this green light. Above it, you see one flashing simply because I have the presser foot in the up position, and when I lower it, it goes away. Okay, but the needle itself works in conjunction with this black latch wire. So I'll pull this away, and if you look at your needle, you see that it's very specific. Okay, there's actually an opening here. And when the needle goes down, as it rises, it picks up the thread that you put through the pigtails in the bobbin case. After it catches that thread from the bobbin case, this latch wire holds it into place. Okay, so when I position that all the way up, if you watch the motion, you'll see when the needle comes down, as it gets to a certain point under the needle plate, now the needle continues to move, but the latch wire stays in place. And then after it catches the thread from the bobbin case and raises, then they both rise to the top. But the latch wire in the up position is actually holding that thread into place. Okay, so again, you always want to push and hold this whenever you're activating the needle or checking the latch wire. So if you look, when I raise and lower this, the latch wire blade is very thin because it has to fit into the groove of this needle. And in place, in the up position, that latch wire should be just underneath the eye so that it's holding that thread in place. Okay, if the tip was gone, your thread could shred. It could cause thread breakage. Same way with the needle. If the needle were blunt or had a burr on it, then you'd want to replace that as well. So I'm going to show you that process. Again, you always want to position the machine to that stopping point. And then I also like to reach in and take away the bobbin case. Okay, now at that point, I can pull down and away this latch wire. The needle itself, if needing replaced, is held in with 1 lock screw coming in from the top. Okay, so just like any other needle, you position the screwdriver into the slot, loosen it, and then while holding it, just drop it down out of position. Okay, if that's no good, we can kind of push that off to the side and replace it with a new one. Okay, now once you get this positioned, this also has a flat on the needle, just like we have on some of our other machines. But this little flat spot on this needle has to face to the right side so that the opening of the needle is facing towards the front. So to guide the needle back in, I'll show you here, there's a little groove, and this helps to support that needle, especially as it's going through heavier fabric. So when I position this in, I want the needle to ride into that groove and go up into the needle bar clamp. Okay, and you always want that flat going to the right side. Once you get that positioned, I always like to use my fingernail to make sure that I position this all the way up to the top when I secure that screw. And that's how easy that is. Not so bad, right? After replacing the needle, then we can inspect the latch wire. Like I mentioned before, the purpose of this is hold the thread into the needle when the needle's in the up position. Okay? Now, if you saw that the tip were broken or see any portion of that eye, then you would need to replace it. So there's just one screw that holds this in place. All you have to do is loosen that screw and slide this out of position. Okay, now if you're not sure if you have a problem or not, what you can always do is remove one of them that comes with your machine and lay it next to each other to compare. If you see that the one in your machine was shorter than the one coming out of your kit, then you know for sure you have to replace it. But they both should line up perfectly. Okay, so I know that this one's in good shape. When replacing it, all you have to do is slide this back underneath the screw inside the casting of the arm. But it's very important that you push it all the way up against this casting. You see there's a little notch here. That's going to make sure that it aligns properly into that needle. And then just tighten that screw. After the latch wire is replaced, just simply swing it back into position. It should line right into the groove of the needle and come down below the eye. Now after replacing the needle, it's always a good idea to rotate your hand wheel just to verify that the upper thread take-up lever is still passing underneath the needle by 1/2 to 1 millimeter. If you notice that it's touching the bottom of the needle, then maybe you don't have that needle all the way up into that needle clamp, which is very important. Now once we get that set, let's go ahead and push the button to position everything perfectly. Make sure your presser foot is in the up position and we can reattach the foot. Okay, nice thumb screw here for your fingers. But I also like to add a little bit of oomph with my screwdriver. Okay, now when you're finished, we want to go ahead and load up the bobbin and do some test sewing. So you want to push and hold again, open the door, then the bobbin case, we want to position so that the thread is pulling clockwise when you lock it into the tension plate. Then I like to give the thread a little bit of a twist to give us a nice stiff tip, because we have to pass that thread through the eyelets of the bobbin case and then pull about 8 to 10 inches of thread. Okay, the tip got a little knotted, so I'm going to trim that bottom off. Okay, now when aligning the bobbin case into the machine, you're going to see a yellow dot on the bottom side. And then to the left side, you see that U shape where the bunny ears are going to lock into. So when you position it, you kind of rotate it and pivot to align this up and then snap it into place. Now once you install the bobbin case back into position, you want to rotate your hand wheel one turn. Nothing will happen, but the next rotation when you come down, then the needle will actually catch that thread and lift it up. Once the thread take-up lever has picked up your thread and you see it this way, then what you want to do is pass underneath it to remove that thread. And then while holding that thread up from an angle to the back, you want to rotate the hand wheel one more revolution so that the lower take-up lever catches that thread. And then once it's held, hold a little pressure towards the back when you close the door and keep pressure on that thread over to the nice thread trimmer that we have. This is a very unique machine. It has very unique stitching. It's very important that the thread is always being fed towards the back side with a little bit of pressure to make it work. And no, I'm sorry, you would never be able to put this on a quilting frame. Again, because your fabric always has to go towards the back. Okay, so at that point, I'm just going to do a little stitching. I'll lower my presser foot. Okay, now we have an automatic needle up-down button. You see here the needle is stopped in the up position. But most of the time when customers are using it, they have it stopping down. That way it helps to hold your fabric. Now we also have a tap function on the foot pedal. So if I tap the foot pedal one time, it rotates it one more revolution. Now if you look here, you're going to see that threads above the foot. This is not the best angle to be changing direction of sewing. If that thread's up on top and you were to move the fabric too much, you could lose that stitch. So when you stop, if you see the light is yellow, it's best to tap the foot pedal one more time. Now the needle stops down, the light is green, you see no thread. But when the needle's down here, your foot is also in the up position. Okay? So that you can pivot your fabric. You can see this one I can just barely pivot. But if you needed more space, then you would adjust the hopper foot position because your foot actually raises up and down here. Okay, so this would be a good point to turn, stitch. Now if I want to stop, I have my green light. I can rotate directions. Okay, now if I stopped and that light was yellow, remember there's thread up here, and if you move your fabric too much, it could unlock your stitch. So one tap, and let's just pivot around this way. And what I think I'll do here, I'm going to open up that stitch length a little bit more so you can really see the beauty of it. Okay, give it a tap. Okay, now isn't that beautiful stitch? Unbelievable. Okay, now when you want to remove your fabric, it's also important at that point then to touch the button to raise your needle. And when the needle's in the up position, what you want to do is raise the presser foot and keep the pressure on that bobbin thread as you pull it back and swing it into the nice thread cutter. And then there's a little spring plate that holds that thread into place. But wow, isn't that beautiful? If you ever experience looping on the bottom, then that'd be an indication you might have to adjust your bobbin case a little tighter. So now that you saw how simple it was to replace your needle and your latch wire, I hope you have great success with your machine. If you'd like to see additional from the Workbench videos, please follow this QR code and it'll take you to my complete playlist for all of our different baby lock machines, as well as any that we produce later on. So now that you know, get out and sew.